So let's get to it. I've got a fairly weak solution of ferric chloride. I'm just going to put the blade in. You might be able to see the change in this through the plastics, that's why I've put it in there. And straight away you can see the pattern developing as the ferric etches the carbon, the higher carbon steel. And this is actually live time. So what I'm going to do is now take it out of there. And I'll just wash that off in the water. And what it does, it removes the oxides from the carbon, and it allows you to keep etching. That's where we're up to so far. And what I'll do is I'll keep dipping it now into the ferric and just further removing layers of the carbon. I'll repeat this process maybe 5 or 6 times now. Just literally etches for 30-45 seconds, taking it out of the ferric, washing it in water, just repeating that. What I don't want the ferric chloride to do is attack the 15N20, because it will, you know, it will attack both layers, and by washing it off it kind of dilutes, and it will eat the carbon, the higher carbon steel, before it will eat the 15N20. If you leave that in there for 20-30 minutes, it will start to attack the 15N20, chewing away at the edges. And I like to keep the edges as clean as I can. It's getting nice and dark now. And what I'm doing by doing this, I'm kind of eating into the carbon layer. The carbon layer is going behind the 15N20 layer. So it's leaving the 15N20 layer proud of the carbon layer. Now the area with the nail varnish on, I am going to etch that, but I don't want to etch it as deep as this. So the etch on that will be exactly the same as when I first dipped it into this and reveal the pattern, and that's all I want to do, because it's pivoting in that area. I don't want to do it too deep and create undulations in the steel. Okay, so I'll just dry the blade off, and I'll hit it with some window cleaner and ammonia just to stop it etching. Okay, so my next step is now to polish the steel. So what I do now is take some of this micro mesh, which is 8000 grit, this one, on my flattened piece of steel, and I am just going to just polish the 15N20 on the surface. I don't want it to go down into the carbon layer, that's why this is a really fine paper. I'm not taking anything off this, really. I'm just removing the oxides from the surface of the 15N20. You can see you can actually feel the ridges now in the steel. All I'm trying to do is preserve the face of the 15N20. Keep it really flat. So I'll let that sit now for another 20-30 seconds, and I will repeat this whole cycle etching, wiping off, etching, wiping off, etching, wiping off, probably 4 or 5 times, and then sanding. So I'm going to do that for another at least 3-4 cycles, and then I'll come back, guys. Really, I've finished with the ferric chloride now, because I've etched deep enough to give me a relief between the higher 15N20 and the lower carbon 20C. So we've got some nice ridges now in the steel. So I'm going to sand that other side down now. Then I'm going to remove that nail varnish and etch that section. Okay, so I've got, you can see the patterns etched in, but what I want to do now is darken off the carbon areas, and I shall do that with vinegar. Brought that vinegar up to boiling point. And vinegar will etch Damascus. It's just slower and a lot gentler. And you can actually see little bubbles coming off the steel in the vinegar. But as I say, it's so much more gentle than ferric chloride. What I will do before I finish this blade, I will do the whole blade in vinegar, just so it's the same colour right across. You can see now the colour is starting to bleed into the carbon steel layer. That nice black finish, but it's not really eating too far into the steel. It's literally just colouring the carbon layer without eating too much of it away. When I'm doing my jamones, I use vinegar for my jamones because it just gives you a much nicer finish than ferric chloride, I think. This cloth is probably the equivalent of just rubbing the face of this steel with a piece of leather. Very, very mildly abrasive. Okay, and that's it, I am done. I will give this one last etch just prior to assembly with lemon juice, which again is a mild acid, but it really hits the carbon layer and really blackens it off. Yeah, so that's how I etch my Damascus, guys. There's nothing magical about it, just ferric chloride, vinegar. You can use coffee, you can use all kinds of things, but I would say don't use an acid or a ferric, for instance, that's very aggressive, a very strong mixture, because what it will do is it will also eat your shiny layers, and you can always kind of see Damascus that's been heavily etched because the edges of the shiny layers are all chewed away. But that's how I do it, guys. I hope it's helped someone out, and I will see you in the next video.